I've always loved myself. Even when I was heavy or fat, whatever you want to call it, right? I always looked at myself and I was like, yeah, we're good, man. I wake up every morning, it's like, hey, you're not the best looking guy, but let's go do this today, let's go live life. And I just had this moment in this mirror. I was like, stop lying to yourself. You don't like this. It's not healthy. And I just went down this list of all sorts of truth bombs, I guess I was giving myself.
What are some of the things that you look at before investing in a company?
So when I look at a deal, if the only thing they're missing is capital to grow, that's attractive. Anything else is not attractive. And I'll throw one more asterisk in there. If my investment dollars are going towards your salary, it's an automatic no.
Welcome to the Burn Up Podcast. I'm stoked today for you guys. This is actually the first time, but this is my second time here with Mark McCormack. Mark, thanks for joining me. Recorded a badass, awesome podcast. Somehow screwed it up, and so the audio didn't work. So this is take one for you, take two for both of us. So Mark, thanks for being willing to come back and do this again.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Yeah, our first conversation was great. So, being a former podcast host myself, it's fun coming on these as a guest.
Yeah, Mark had a podcast, and we were just talking about it before we started, possibly considering, you did over 200 episodes. Yep. And maybe not turn it back on. I want to jump into something, but before I do that, one of the things, as I'm getting to know you and, through social, we know a lot of the same people, and you just obviously have great presence. One, you're a big dude, right? And it's just the way you carry yourself. We were just talking earlier about integrity. Yeah. And, I want to cover some business stuff today, but I want to jump into the phrase that we were just talking about, because I think it's a great point. Mm-hmm. We both probably heard when we were younger, first starting our careers, it's like, you got to fake it till you make it, which I think is bullshit, and Concur. I think I probably was one way back in the day. It's like, well, you just got to fake it till you make it, Well, I
think the problem with that phrase is, especially when you're younger, it can logically make sense. It's like, yeah, I'm going to put a suit on and act like I know what I'm doing and act like I belong here and stuff. And that's really shading more to confidence, right? But the actual, when you fake it till you make it, you're really just lying, which is kind of what we were discussing earlier.
Yeah. I did a podcast last week about the truth. I've had this whole thing around that just because of my own journeys, and one of your company's bricks, that you invested in, talking about one of the core principles is integrity. Mm-hmm. I've been sitting with that, just my own stuff. And then when you see it with other people, and it's fascinating how much of society, frankly, lies, right? We talk about, I'm honest. And it's like, and you can get down to just such a micro level. I mean, if you go into a Starbucks and get a coffee and you're having a shitty day, the barista says, hey, you doing? It's like, I'm good. Like, well, you just lied. Right. If you're not good, right? And it's so fascinating when you get into that. And what I'm finding for a lot of people is like, it's hard to tell the truth. There's all sorts of a mask they're wearing. What are they going to think of me? Am I going back to fake it till you make it? What if I say I don't know? Maybe I'm going to lose this business, or, and I just, from a lot of my own experience on both sides of it, like just telling the truth, no matter what the other person or however they react, we have no control over them anyway. Yeah. It's always a better place to stand.
And one thing that I've noticed is being a business owner and employing people and kind of being in that world for a very, very long time, 20 plus years, is when I hire somebody and I ask them to do something, I want them to tell me if they can do it or not, because if 3 days later you haven't completed it because you don't know and you made it seem like you did, I'm pissed, right? The flip side of that is, and kind of like what you're alluding to, is if you think you're going to lose a sale from somebody, right? You got to keep in mind what that other person wants to know is, if I buy something from you, are you going to ride with me? Are you going to help me? Is your product are you going to stand behind it? That type of stuff. So saying stuff like, I don't know, or I'll have to get back with you, or maybe we need to negotiate that in. Those are all very honest statements that keep both parties equal inside the transaction. I think once you start getting the imbalance inside the transaction where it's not a win-win for people, that's where you really start getting screwed up. And so even the I'll figure it out kind of thing down the road doesn't really work for people, because time is money. There's a speed to this, right? So if you're telling them the truth and saying, I can't do this, I can do this, then they can make an informed decision, either hire you or not. But then you also always stay inside integrity with them and being honest. So even if you came back a month or a day later and said, hey, I did figure that out, can I have another shot at this? Then you just stay inside that integrity bubble. At least in my opinion.
No, I agree. I had an experience. I mean, I think I shared this recently, but years ago, if I forgot to do something, let's say I had a client I needed to call, my default years ago would have been like, oh, I forgot, I'm busy. Oh my gosh, I forgot to get to it. And I had a client, I'll never forget this, his name was Brent. And, I was supposed to call him. I forgot, so he calls me and he's pissed, rightfully so. And he goes, you said you were going to call. And I literally just said, Brent, I forgot. I just said it. I'm like, I spaced it. He goes, oh, total demeanor change, temper change. He goes, oh, I can accept that. We all forget. And then everything was fine. Yeah. Versus like, well, this happened and this happened and this happened, and just say it. Like, it was so free. And I remember a moment like, God, that was so much easier than just like giving some bullshit line that frankly wasn't real.
And you also don't have to worry about what you say. That's a big thing in life, if you are always constantly telling me the truth, you don't have to worry about what you say, because then if someone asks you in 6 months, why did you call me back? You'd be like, oh, I just forgot to call you back that time. Didn't we talk about that? You don't have to go back to the, well, wasn't it my dog got sick? You know, you're trying to like backtrack into some bullshit lie that you told.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things that, you know, again, you're involved, you're doing a lot of investing, you've had a lot of business success, invested in a lot of, you know, you have portfolio companies, you've invested in funds, you know, and, you know, we were just talking previously before we got started. What are some of the things that you look at before investing in a company? I'm going to assume, which I think is the case, right? For you, first and foremost, it's who are the people behind it?
Yes. That's, gosh, if I was looking at the steps, it's different between what type of investment you're getting into, right? So if I'm talking about a stock, we'll put those to the side, totally different. If I'm looking at a VC deal, which means it's more of a seed, right? It could be pre-revenue, different things. There's a set of rules for that. And then the other set of rules falls under private equity, right? Where the company's already flourishing. They're generally in the black already. So if I'm looking at, like, let's take a VC deal, for example. That's kind of what we did over at Tandem mostly. I look at the management of the company and then the probability of them being successful, right? Whatever they're selling, whatever they're doing has to be able to hit. And generally in that world, it has to hit about a 10x, right? In a certain amount of time. Because if they can't, there's other companies you can go and invest into, right? So VC is an interesting world because you're gambling a little bit more in VC because you're into unproven things, but you really need to know that the product has legs, right? And so when you interview, if you get past all the preliminary underwriting that happens and you actually get to the interview stage, when you're talking to the partners or whoever's actually interviewing you, some of the underwriters, they're just seeing if you can do it. Really. They're just quizzing you to death to see how well you know your business, how well you know accounting. You know, I think you're absolutely foolish if you don't understand your accounting and trying to raise money from people. You know, it's like the figure it out later kind of strategy, right? Like that you'll never get funded by anybody with any sort of sophistication.
Have you had people come and pitch you deals and they don't have a clue about what they're talking about?
All the time.
Yeah. You're just like,
I'm depending on who sends me the deal, I'll just politely reject it. Or if I like the person or I know the person on any level, I'll try and help them, right? So there's a lot of pitch deck editing that I do for people, right? Like my number one thing that's kind of funny that kind of jars people is don't put your damn family on there, right? It's manipulative and I don't care about your family, right? So, and what I mean by that is people, you know, they'll show a page where they have the family and the dog and, you know, they're like, oh, you know, make our dreams come true kind of moment here. And it's like, you're pulling, no one in VC or PE wants to be emotional about anything. It wants to be data driven. This is predictable. We're going to put our money behind this thing because they have a fiduciary agreement to every super millionaire that's put money into their fund, right? And so when they sit across that table, they just want to see the data. So it's cash forecasting and how you're doing right now and the cost of your product is generally all the financial stuff that you really need to know. And then you're going to look and see, can this team actually execute if I give them money?
Do you look at, and this is probably more for pre-seed or just even startup companies, is one of the things you look at, do you look at how much money the founders or the principals are putting in and or how much risk they're taking?
Absolutely. Yep.
You know, I found that was always a big metric for me is like, well, how much money do you have at risk? I literally just last week I had a conversation with a gentleman. He had some questions on how to raise capital and doing things. And like, he has zero risk, zero money in the whole type, you know, trying to do this. And I just said, you're going to lose a lot of people, especially institutional money, you know, because you have no risk in this.
Correct.
You know, yeah. I mean, and what I mean by risk, it's having financial risk.
Yeah. In my opinion, let's just say for my investing appetite, if you're not heavily at risk, then I'm not interested at all. So, because I don't want to take this thing over, right? So when you throw your hands up and go, oh, this is too hard for me, I'm going to go back and do whatever, right? I'm sitting there holding the shambles of some broken architecture, and I'm either going to lose my money or I'm going to go fix this thing. It's also why I hate startup companies. I think I'm past doing that. And a lot of people, when they do a startup, they come to you and it's like their journey to become an entrepreneur, and they've heard the word other people's money, right? Instead of like, no, I really found a niche business that I've built a moat around, that if we go and attack this thing, the only thing I'm missing is money, right? So when I look at a deal, if the only thing they're missing is capital to grow, that's attractive. Anything else is not attractive. And I'll throw one more asterisk in there. If my investment dollars are going towards your salary, it's an automatic no.
Yeah, I love that. And I've shut down deals. We presented deals where that's in the past, where that's been, that's a huge case because it's how much is actually going out. Or sometimes when money's coming in, it's like, oh, this is just to buy all these people out. You put $1 million in and only 100 grand is going to the company. The rest is going out to buy different people. And
right. If you're taking investment, it needs to be like seriously at least 85% growth, right? There's a little bit of development inside of companies, right? So sometimes people will be building some sort of a software, some sort of an app or the part of their company needs some software and they need some more development dollars. That can make sense, but it needs to be locked in, right? Like these are developers who've been working this long. I ran out of cash, so I need another $100,000 to finish this, but I need, $1 million to market it. And then boom, right? Those are acceptable. But if it gets down to I had this really cool idea and I just need, all your money to do the app. Just no. You'll just get passed on over and over.
Oh yeah,
and
and I've invested in those deals.
How'd it go?
Over the years, and it's like, and I have a big fat zero, or a negative, if you will, because of investing in those things.
Yeah.
How? I'm curious. I mean, obviously, you're in the capital raise space, and I mean, what advice would you give? Someone that needs capital, but doesn't even know where to begin with this whole process.
It's a very broad question.
I know it's totally. But again, I guess what are some of the things that you see that work or don't work? I'll ask that question differently. Like when people are going to raise capital, when they need it, when do you feel like somebody? I mean, maybe even that's too broad. But just what are some advice that you would give business owners? Of how to prepare for that.
Yeah, one of the very first things that I like to ask people, put it this way, right? So no matter where the deal's at, one of the first questions I say is, why don't you have an SBA loan? And that will determine a lot of the reason why they don't have capital, right? If they say, oh, I didn't know that was available, we have a massive problem. So you can't use Google. You know what I mean? That's really what you're saying to me. You didn't type in how to raise easy capital. Our country has this awesome thing called the Small Business Administration. They give super cheap loans.
Which it's cheap money.
It's way cheaper than an investor. Way cheaper than an investor. And so if you haven't even gone down that road, it makes me question that, right? Or home equity lines of credit. And you can kind of go to friends and family. I never do that, right? The only friends that have invested with me are friends who are already wealthy and they're looking to put money into a deal, right? Or they have a good sized stock portfolio or they have like some good real estate. Now they want to take some of their capital, 10 to 20% of it and stick it in some more high risk VC stuff or high risk PE stuff. I like doing that all day. If I know the person, I'll bring them in on those deals. But I don't go to my parents or my grandparents. I didn't do any of that stuff early on. Or, part of it honestly is just go win, right? If you've actually taken a company, even if you only made a couple $100,000 off the sell, but the numbers and the percentages are right, you can actually prove that you've done this before. That opens those doors a little bit wider to actually put some capital in there. But you really need to exhaust every single thing that you possibly can, especially the easy things, even signature bank loans for 25 grand, right? Like those are not hard to get. And so if you're coming for a $60,000 loan and you haven't got any traditional financing, it's just a red flag that you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah, and when I first started, years ago, when anything I grew, it's like I'm gonna get this credit card, I'm gonna get this home line, this line of credit. I didn't want to bring other money people in, and it's like that was easy money, frankly. And I think what you just said, it's like if you can't get the easy money, then there's something else that's not happening. Yeah. Did you go straight into entrepreneurship? Like, no. Where'd you start?
I started at 8 years old working at one of the companies I own.
8 years old. 8 years old. I love it.
Yeah, my dad is a Scottish immigrant. I'm a first generation American. He immigrated to this country in the 70s. Started a company when I was 3 called ADP Lemco, and it's the athletic equipment company that I now own. I bought it from him in 2015.
Okay.
So I worked in the company. I got a paralegal studies degree, 4-year bachelor's. I got into law school. I was going to end up going to Texas Tech, and then my dad asked me if I'd come help him run the business. And I did. I said okay to that. It was 2007. And by 2011, we almost went bankrupt. But a lot of that has to do with 2008 crash. And in our world, we do a lot of new construction, right? So when the 2008 crash happened, they weren't building a lot of new homes. And so they weren't building new neighborhoods. And so they weren't building new schools. And so there was a period there for about 2 years. And we're always delayed 2 years, right? So about 2010, the entire industry really dried up. And so then the government ended up coming in and stimulating with remodel money and stuff like that. And that's kind of what got our industry back on track.
How was that working with your dad?
It was great. actually. Working with my dad was great. So, he did some things which, in my opinion, were unintended. He can take credit for them now, But I remember when I got married, I was making like $12 an hour, and I asked for a $3 an hour raise, and he just told me no. I thought it was pretty cold. So,
did you see a different side of your dad? Let me preface the question, because when I was in college, I was in the restaurant. I wanted to go into the restaurant business, and I was working at Lakai, at the time, and I was newly married, and my wife at the time, she'd go to work at 6:30, come home at 2:30. I'd go to work at 2:30, and we never saw each other, and anyway, so my dad was this lifelong life insurance agent, and I never wanted to get in that industry, but it's like, I kind of was like, what am I going to go do? Ended up borrowing some money from my grandfather so I could afford the, whatever the little I was making at Lakai. And, but it was interesting. But when I went to my dad, he said, he goes, you're going to see another side of me, my dad's on a pedestal, and here's my dad, Superman. And then all of a sudden I start working with him, and it's like, oh, my dad he's human. He does things a different way that I've never seen before. And I'm learning this business and doing stuff. And I asked this too, because I was with a friend of mine just a couple of days ago in some meetings, and his son just joined. I'm like, how's it going? He goes, well, he's identifying my cobwebs, and just like, I was just curious. So I'm asking the curiosities as far as like seeing how your dad ran the business versus you coming in. You start to see like, hey, there's some more efficiencies. And did he receive obviously you ended up buying the company, but was there ever any family and business sometimes can be very challenging for a lot of people?
It can, for sure. Yeah. I didn't see another side of my dad because he's very similar inside the business than outside the business. I think, and that actually kind of translates to, and I also started working for him when I was 8, right? So I was so young.
So you were so young. Okay.
Yeah. When I say working, I worked like 10 to 20 hours a week. And then all through high school, I worked for him. All through college, I worked for him. I mean, I worked summers every day. Like, I didn't have time off. Like, I probably had 4 days off of work before I left to my mission. And when I got home, I came home during Christmas break, so I can't really remember. I don't want to snow uphill both ways story this thing, right? But I probably within a week or two, I was back to work and then back to college. And I don't know. I have a hard time with 4-day weekends. If you want to know the truth, I get cabin fever.
Yeah.
But going back to your original question, I saw some things in him that were different, but I think for my kids, it's a little bit different when they see me because they see me like very active role being a boss. My dad was a little more CEO. He was kind of hands-on because he's an engineer by trade. That's how he designed all the units and stuff. But then he had, he ran a company that had about 150 employees. All mine growing up. I shrunk it down to 30, and then I did a private, or not a private equity deal. I did a joint venture agreement with a manufacturer to take all the manufacturing away. That's how I was able to shrink it down, and then I grew it by 10x. And so we have very different styles of running a business. I am data oriented. I do not give a shit how people feel. I don't let them know that, but I don't really care how people feel. They're like, I feel this marketing plan will do well. I go, why? Right, and it's going to go right back down to the data and say, for every $1 we make $3, or for every $1 we make $7 here. That's the stuff I care about and I learned that probably from my dad a little bit. And I don't want to make it sound like he was some emotional decision maker or stuff like that, but he would get turned depending on who was kind of selling him, right? It's really, really hard to sell me because it's all data for me.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing you and I share in common is, we both have lost a lot of weight, right? So, from peak to where you are, how much weight did you lose total?
About 90 pounds.
90 pounds.
Yeah. Feels good.
Yeah.
And then last year I had a tummy tuck.
Yeah.
So
I've had one too.
Oh, yeah.
I had one too. Yeah. Cause I'm now down 135.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an accomplishment. That's cool.
It's wild. Yeah.
I think you told me on the last podcast, so I went and looked up some of your older pictures, or maybe you posted some before and afters or something.
I just posted a before and after thing today. And it's just wild too. Cause and again, it's funny. Cause I tell people, I got a mommy makeover, cause it's like, you lose that much weight. It's like, there's a lot of loose skin.
There's a lot of loose skin.
Yeah. No, that's cool. What kind of led to you on your weight gain? Obviously eating more than weight exercise. Gain? Yeah.
I worked a lot. So when my kids were young, I worked a lot, like probably, I probably averaged 10 hours a day, and that was every day. And so, but I'd have like a 16-hour day in here. So you just start eating like shit, you just snack a lot, and, you keep stuff in your desk, and then you don't exercise because you're like, I gotta get this thing done. I gotta blah, 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 and you just make all these. And I don't know if it was a foolish mistake or not. I've done very well financially. I'm very comfortable. And now I've got my weight down to where it needs to be. And I'm kind of heading into those years. I'm 44 and yeah, I turned 44. Sorry. I can't remember what month it is. And so I've still got plenty of life to live in a healthy body. And so, but I don't love the fact that I did get kind of heavy, but it was going to school full time, working full time, being married, having kids young, just obsessing about making sure I had financial security and learning everything I possibly could. And
what was the trigger for you? Was there a moment that you can look back like, all right, this is enough? Like, or you just,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a huge sledgehammer to the face.
What happened?
It was Watt. I was in a Watt event. Right. And so Watt is, for those listeners out there, it's a men's group that we did.
Yeah.
For
We Are the
years.
They. Yeah.
Yeah. We Are the They. And one of the things we did was a military weekend, right, with like the UFC and some UFC fighting and some UFC fighters and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of a real active weekend, right? And I'm a big, strong dude. I don't even think I've gained that much muscle throughout my weight loss. I kind of just maintained it and just kind of like came off, right?
Yeah.
So now I look like a monster. But we're doing this UFC thing, right? And my group of guys go 100% on everything, right? And we did, right? It was like, I'm going to whoop your ass in this, right? And so we were doing 2-minute sparring sessions. I bet 30% of us after every single one went out in the parking lot and threw up after, right? I mean, we were going hard. Like McHenry was in there, right?
Yep.
Like Mel, all these kind of guys. And, I was taking the other guys out pretty easily until I got to Mel Shingleton, who's my Polynesian brother. And and me and him just went hard. And it was the last 4 seconds of it, I actually quit. I just couldn't move. It was just done. My body just done. And so, in fact, I went outside and threw up in the front AstroTurf of this freaking building. And then we went up, then, we went somewhere and ate, then we went back up there. And I remember that night I was brushing my teeth and I was looking in the mirror. And I've always loved myself. I've never, even when I was heavy or fat, whatever you want to call it, right? I always looked at myself and I was like, yeah, we're good, man. I wake up every morning, it's like, hey, you're not the best looking guy, but let's go do this today, let's go live life. And I just had this moment in this mirror. I was like, stop lying to yourself. You don't like this. It's not healthy. It's not, and I just went down this list of all sorts of things, truth bombs, I guess I was giving myself. And I was like, and that was a Saturday. And I was like, cool, I'm starting Monday. And my mindset was 2 things. I'm going to do what healthy people do, and I'm never going to miss a workout. And so healthy people don't eat shit. Healthy people get enough sleep. Healthy people get up early in the morning because their day will smash them if they don't, right? Yes, you can work out whenever you want, but for me, I got to do it in the morning. If I don't in the morning, I have a very low likelihood of getting it done. And I just started doing that. And to be honest, I didn't really lose much weight for about 6 weeks, maybe a couple of pounds, which was weird for me. Because when you're big and heavy, right? Like you can lose 10 pounds a week, right?
My weight yo-yoed so much over the years. I mean, when I'm like, all right, I've had enough. To lose, I have a 20-pound in a month was actually
nothing,
standard.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It's like I used to joke, well, that's my thumb.
Right. Right. Exactly. And so eventually, along the way, then I actually ended up talking to because I was taking testosterone since I was like 33, right? They suggested I take trizipatide. Right. So I was like, all right, cool. So I was on trizipatide for which is another semaglutide. It's like Mounjaro or all that semaglutide stuff. And so I did that for about 6 to 7 months. Then I weaned off for like 3 because you got to wean off of it. Right. And then I just kept doing it. I started feeling better and I was looking better. And I was just like, then I made some bets. That's why Nick Hallen's got a tattoo of my face on his ass. He lost that bet.
Yeah.
I was not going to lose that bet. And so I just kept on going down and down and down and down. And then for the last, it's probably been, a year and a half that I maintained my weight. And it was that moment. It was that moment where I was like, you physically quit, which is proof to you that you're not where you need to be. And so
I'm curious, you just said something that's interesting. You're like, you've always loved yourself. Never big, small, whatever. But then you looked in the mirror and you said, it's kind of the truth. Like if you look back, did you truly love it? I mean, love, and you can not be happy with how you look, right?
Yeah.
Not satisfied and still love yourself. But when you said you had the truth reflected back, was it almost also the reflection of even the belief that, hey, everything's great. I'm good. Like, I'm curious of what you said.
Yeah. To dive more into that, I did always love myself. I really did. It was never a love thing. It was like it was almost like I was lying to myself that I looked good enough, kind of thing,
Okay.
right? Like, yeah, you look good enough, you know, like, yeah, this shirt looks good on you, or, you know, oh, you're strong, you know, because people tell me that all the time. It's like, oh, you carry weight really well. And I'm
Oh,
like,
people
yeah,
should
maybe
tell me
I
that
do.
all the time. I look at pictures. I'm like, I'm 100 pounds overweight. Like I didn't, and I used
I'm
to
killing
think
myself
that, like,
now.
I'm hiding it. And then I'd see pictures and go back. I'm like, I wasn't hiding anything.
No, exactly. So like, that's actually the hardest part right now for me to go see old pictures of myself, especially when my kids are young. I'm not a fat, disgusting guy. I'm just big. My face is big. My belly's big, you know, like I don't like that. I don't like those memories. And so now when I have pictures of my kids and stuff, I'm like, oh, this is cool. At least they're going to remember me as a fit dad.
Yeah. And my kids, like, yeah, they've seen the extremes of both sides, and it's kind of like, they'll send old pictures of me, and I'm like, yeah, I haven't changed a bit. You know, and again, I'm asking that. What was also coming to mind is I had a client here, I don't know, a few months ago that originally wanted to talk kind of fitness stuff and do some things. The guy's probably, I don't know, 50 pounds overweight. Started doing that. And then, you know, we get into, as we start talking anything, he goes, I think I look amazing. So I'm like, dude, your belly's hanging over. Like, so, and I'm catching myself. I'm like, am I projecting my own thing onto this guy just because of my own thing?
Right.
And I'm like, so I just kept pushing him. I'm like, all right, you're standing there butt ass naked and you're just like there naked. He goes, oh, I look amazing. Like I love myself and I look so, and I'm like, bro, like I have a hard time believing that. And I'm like, and so even the points, I'm like, well, what if you look different? Like, what? Just so I kept asking all these questions. I'm just probing because I'm genuinely curious at this point. I'm like, so if you could choose this or that, he goes, honestly, I love how I look. And as I sat and talked to him, like, to me, when people say that, a lot of it's just like, you know, the work that it takes to get there, they're not willing to do. And so it's almost like this, like, I'm accepting who I am, but deep down, if I'm being really honest, like, well, who wouldn't pick to be in better shape versus that, right? And you know intimately well how we just feel as men being overweight or extremely overweight versus being in shape energetically. It affects everything.
Yeah.
It affects everything. And, you know, I had one client kind of did the same thing, and I go, let me just ask you this. I'm like, is it because you don't want to do what's necessary to get there? He goes, yeah, that's actually really it.
I like that. At least he's honest.
I'm like, I know. I'm like, oh, I can take that.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's just fascinating. And I think I've seen that, you know, my belief is with anything, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, you know, physical health, it's like the only difference between somebody that's made it and not, whatever made it is that they've been willing to do the work. It's earned.
Consistently.
Period. It's consistent. It's just discipline's consistency. I mean, the formula for all this stuff is pretty simple. Mm-hmm. We overcomplicate it, you know, and yet people settle and they get okay, but like there's this voice in the back of men's heads, especially like I'm not enough. I can't do it. This, like, you know, worth and shame and all these different things associated with it, but then they mask it and they hide it, and that which leads to addiction and all the different things, you know. But you can't substitute work like earned. I mean, you've had a tremendous amount of success, and but you worked your ass off to get there, you know. And sometimes there's consequences, or sometimes the family doesn't get as much time, or certain things happen. Or one of the things that you said that I loved in your profile in LinkedIn just says, like, you're a huge fan of delayed gratification.
Oh yeah.
So saying that and actually doing it's very different.
Yeah.
You know, being okay having FOMO. Hey, I got to build this business. I can't go out with my friends this night, or I got to go do this, or I'm not. And I've, you know, and even with food for me, as I've been, you know, training for what I'm doing, like there's been times where it's like, I want to go out, but I know myself, like I'd rather not, don't put the alcoholic in the bar to order a glass of water.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and nothing tastes as good as being fat.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or sorry, nothing tastes as good as being fit.
Which is
You know
true.
what I mean? It doesn't. My thing too is like nowadays, one of the things I've been able to do is like, you know, if I feel like having a dessert, it's 2 bites. I don't care if I waste the whole thing. It's either going to go on my love handles, or I'm going to like get a little bit of gratification and be done with it, you know? But kind of going back with delayed gratification, that, you know, the marshmallow test, right? Have you heard of that?
No, what
with
is
little
that?
kids? I might butcher this a little bit, so our viewers go look this up. But they took a bunch of like 5 or 6 years olds, right? And they put a marshmallow in front of them, and they said, "Hey, if you don't eat that, when I come back, I'll give you another one. You'll have 2." Right? And they're like, "Oh, okay, cool." And so the second they walk out of the room, half these kids just, you know what I mean? Because you have no control, basically, right? And then they come and they go, "Tommy, what happened? and be like, oh, I just ate the thing, blah, blah, blah. And then I can't remember if they did it again just to see if it was a fluke and they could do it. But it's like almost 100%. They either have it or they don't. And then they followed these people for like 15 or 20 years and saw where their lives ended up. And I think it's every single one of them that could delay gratification. And they would wait. Sorry, I should back up. When they put that marshmallow in there, they would wait forever. Because the thing is to get them to eat that marshmallow. Or how long does it take, right? It wasn't like they're coming back in 5 minutes. Some of these kids waited 20, 30, 40 minutes before the person showed back up again. But those people were massively farther ahead than other people. Like massively, financially, health-wise, everything. It's called the marshmallow test. So if you just Google it, you can kind of see the details of it. And that, when I watched the documentary on that, that's the thing that actually hit delayed gratification for me massively. And when it comes to investing, by the way, that's all investing is delayed gratification. You're going to take some money and kind of hope and pray that in 7 to 10 years from now, it's worth a lot more than when you put it in. But the only way to do that is to put it in and wait.
Which people have a hard time doing.
Really hard time doing. That's why we have like $1 trillion of credit card debt in our country. Like, what are you guys buying? Like, I can get really into the economics of this, but the more debt you have, the way less chance of you becoming wealthy is. Because you start having to feed that beast. It's like a country, right, with $38 trillion in debt.
When I always say that money never sleeps, it's always awake, always working either against you or for you.
100%.
It's 24 hours a day.
You're either gaining interest or paying interest.
Yeah. No, I love that. One of the things that you've talked openly about, we talked actually last time on take 1 of this podcast. Mm-hmm. You've participated in psychedelics. Mm-hmm. Right. How did that even come to be? Like, how did you feel called to it? Like where,
yeah, so some psychedelics in certain parts of the country are legal, right? So I got to put a little bit of an asterisk out there. Anyone listen to this, right? Don't do this stuff unless you're doing it legally. I'm actually licensed in Oregon to facilitate it. So when I got into this, I wanted to learn everything I possibly could. So I got 4 certificates off of Udemy, and then I ended up going and taking a course in Oregon. It was, I think I have about 120 hours of coursework just on psychedelics itself. And so my first introduction to them, quite frankly, was in the Joe Rogan podcast. He was talking about mushrooms. And I was always like, this is kind of interesting. And then he had Ron White on, that comedian, and he went down and did ayahuasca in Costa Rica, right, where it's legal down there. And it actually cured his alcoholism. Ayahuasca is almost a silver bullet for almost all addiction. There's actually high-ranking CEOs throughout this country that get really addicted to cocaine and stimulants and stuff like that. And when they get down the road too bad, they actually just go do ayahuasca and it knocks it out of them for as long as they want. So it's kind of a weird thing. There's a lot of research behind it. In fact, even here in Utah, MDMA and mushrooms are legal. They just have to be administered by a MD, and they have to be in a clinical like a medical facility or a clinic. Yeah. And so, but the first time I took them, I got invited to a place, and we took MDMA and we took mushrooms. And it was actually kind of funny because there's a drop-in period when you taking this stuff. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's a drop-in period when you have it. And so everyone dropped in and I didn't. And so I ended up doubling my dose. And then it hit me hard, right? And I was just like, oh, this is crazy. And I remember watching people's kind of egos dissolve and then become more free and a little more vulnerable. And your first time's kind of interesting, right? Because you're kind of discovering things for the first time, like your breath and, like how you feel and how you think about things and your ability to share. And I just remember thinking, I'm like, we could do this without being on drugs. You know what I mean? Like this, you can have these conversations without doing this. But then I realized it's actually wildly helpful for people to do that, to actually have a substance bring especially something natural like mushrooms, right? They literally grow in the forest, right? It brings their inhibitions down and it brings down their vulnerability, but it also keeps them very lucid, right? It's not drunk or like being high on weed or anything like that. You're very lucid during all of this, and you're just you're really having your neural pathways redrawn. And it's a way for you to become who you want to be. And so I still actually remember the way I took it the first time was in a chocolate. I still remember holding this chocolate thinking, why the hell am I doing this? My life is awesome, right? This could lead me down a crazy path of destruction like all drugs can or any vice can. And then I said, YOLO, right? Popped this thing in my mouth and just started doing it. And then, and I've had some of my closest relationships have been born out of that arena. because you could take a relationship with someone you've had for 5 years, you can condense it down to a couple of nights and get super deep with people and see who they are, and they tell you who they are and you tell them who you are and connect. And I've never had anything but a positive experience on psychedelics.
Yeah. I view them all as positive, even the quote unquote dark ones. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm a huge advocate, you know, and, you know, as my experience and, or my own maturity level with it, if you will, has grown, you know, it's not for everybody. And it's interesting. People will ask, well, what's it like? You know, especially somebody that's going to do something for the first time. And I keep telling them, like, listen, you could ask me and 100 other people and you get 100 different opinions. You might see some similarities, but at the end of the day, you do not know. It doesn't matter what I say until you actually experience it.
Agreed.
You know, and in my belief too, is a lot of people that have these dark or hard, if you will, journeys, you know, assuming they prepared their body and they're not on some medication that's, you know, conflicting with it. But the truth is, like, a lot of it's going to show you, I mean, it shows you truth. It shows you the dark, and you're dark. And if you're not ready to face it, you know this, it's like if you're in a psychedelic state, if you will, in medicine, and you're trying to resist whatever's coming, I mean, you're trying to control it. Like, it's a process of surrender and just, like, you know, receive. And sometimes people, like, want to blame or point a finger, but ultimately it's like, listen, there's something in you that you got to look at. And the only way you can let that go is if you actually lean into it.
Yeah. And take the time to actually think about it.
Yeah.
Humans avoid a lot. And sometimes that's good, to be honest, right? Because you got to get some shit done every day. So if you got to avoid some stuff, whatever, right? Make it happen. But then you have to, the yin and yang of it, right? Then you do have to take the time to address what's going on with you, right? And really check and say, am I okay? Am I doing okay? Am I on the right path? You know, are my relationships good? Because that's what really matters, you know? Am I being honest? Am I doing the things that I should do? And I think when you do psychedelics, it really opens you up to just like unfiltered thought with that. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, people call them journeys, right? Where they get together and they do these in large groups or small groups or large groups or whatever. And really, when I've participated in those or facilitated those, I tell people, I'm like, you're just coming here to pick a few things that you're going to let go of that don't serve you anymore. Yep. And then you just start kicking those things off, right? That's the thing. You're talking to someone. We try and put a situation where everyone there is a very high integrity, good person, right? Doesn't mean they're perfect. Doesn't mean that they're not going through something or have gone through something, right? But they're, in general, a good person. And that's the way we deem it, right? And the reason why is because when we bring new people into there, they're talking to someone they've never met before, but it's a good person. They're saying, like, hey, man, this is some things I've gone through. Have you looked at it this way? And you're just getting all these perspectives. And then the next day, you know, and all that stuff wears off in about 4 hours, right, for people. So over the next couple of days, you're into a peaceful mindset where you're like, yeah, that one guy said this and he could let go of it. Why am I holding on to this crap? Yeah. You know, and you just choose to let it go.
You know, going back to your comment earlier about, you know, just like truth, like when you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I got to lose weight. How do you take feedback if someone points out, you know, maybe it's your wife, maybe it's a close friend, like, that checks you? Like, how are you receiving
I love this because I've talked about this a lot with people. So I feel like I'm one of the most coachable people I've ever met if I deem you a coach. And so most advice people give me, I've realized it's a projection of their own thoughts and experiences in life, right? And generally when people give you advice, it's really for them, right? They're saying something that's on their mind and they notice it in you, so they start pointing it out, right? And so, and that doesn't mean that you don't need to check yourself either, right? Like, so if someone has a high, you value them and you put them in a high position inside your world, then I will take their advice a lot more than someone that I just met off the street, right? Or a guru, or like, I'm not really a Tony Robbins guy. I'm not really any of those things, guys, yeah. Right? I don't actually like the self-help world all that much because I think it's churned into just a money-making opportunity for selling a book or whatever, you know. I think mentorship and really good friends, right, that you've fostered those relationships are the best place to go grab advice from.
But what I hear you saying is if it's someone you respect, you're much more open versus if it's someone you don't know or heard the saying, it goes in one ear, not the other. Like,
for example, I am vigilant in making sure no one has any clue how much money I'm worth, right? And so, but to make a lot of money, you have to learn a lot of things and do a lot of things and try a lot of things and fail and succeed and fail and succeed and then start succeeding, right? And so I had this this young man approached me. I'm guessing he's like late 20s, maybe early 30s, right? And he wanted to sell me some financial product. I think it was life insurance or something. Right? And I'm very kind to him. And I sat him down and I was just like, hey, bro, blah, blah, blah. Okay, tell me what your thing is, right? And I go, okay, let me stop you right there. I have 4 of those policies already. And they're like, oh, and I said to him, I said, listen to me. Why are you trying to sell this to me? And he was just like, I just try to sell it to everybody. I'm like, that's very foolish, right? The product you're selling doesn't fit my investment portfolio or strategy at all. It's term life insurance, I think is what he's trying to sell me. I'm like, I do universal policies that actually carry cash values that I can loan against down the road, right? These are financial instruments for me that I front load with hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he's like, oh, and I'm like, so anything that he's going to say to me, I would not take any of his advice because he doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know what I need. He's not selling a product. He's just trying to make money is really what it boils down to. And so, I even think, I'll bring a name up, my friend Jimmy Rex, right? Like Jimmy can give really good advice in certain things. He cannot give advice with having kids or relationships he knows some good things. It's not like everything he says is wrong, right? But until you've
experienced
I've been married for 21 years. We've been through some shit, you know what I mean? Just like anybody else. I don't think we're special at all, right? I think we've made it work for 21 years. And so it'd be very hard for me to take advice from someone who's been married for 5 years or who's never been married, right? And then when it comes down to having kids, right? I've got a 16-year-old daughter, a 13-year-old son, and a 10-year-old daughter. If you've done that, I'll listen to you. If you've never had a kid or your kids are 5, I'll be nice and listen to what you have to say, but there's not one thing that's penetrating this, right? And I just kind of put that down.
Yeah, when I went through my divorce, everybody wants to give advice and family, everybody, and it's like, yeah, and then and even when I own my wealth management firm, I would advise clients all the time on divorce, separating assets, and I'm like, it was coming from a good place. It's like, I think I know. And then I went through my own and I'm like, I don't know shit. And then what was interesting is like, as I was going through that, certain people in my life, if they had been there, all of a sudden I'm like, tell me, or I'm like, it's almost like this, like, oh, and it's like versus somebody else giving advice. And that's the power of experience. And I'm sure a lot of the success you have and the reason you look at certain deals, investment deals, the way you look at it is because you've had experience with shitty deals and things that have gone south and you've lost money, and that's been, tuition, if you will. Yeah. And that's how you learn.
And I've watched other people. Most of the failures I've watched actually haven't been my own. I have failed, don't get me wrong. But the big ones is watching other people do that. And then I watch the dust settle and I go, okay, why did that happen to this person? Right? You've probably had a friend, right? Every deal he gets in, he gets screwed, right? I know what's going on with that. You have no contract. Like 99% of the time, the guy that says he's screwed over and over again, I go, oh, well, what would the contract say? Well, we didn't have a contract, bro. He was my bro. We trusted each other. I was like, oh, God. You know what I'm saying? It's like the contract is you both memorializing the agreement that you have in a document. So if things start going crazy when you guys are out there battling the world, you go back to the document, their operating agreement, and say, what did we actually agree to? How does this unwind? How does this get sold? If I die, am I all of a sudden partners with your wife? No, thank you. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff is how you
prevent disagreements.
Yeah. That agreement sets up the deal for success down the road. I could pound on that forever.
No, I know. Well, the thing I love about you too is like you give back a lot. I mean, just your willingness to be here, and and even we had this scheduled earlier or last week or something. I can't remember. And you're like, I'm sorry, I'm mentoring someone that day. It's like I think a big part of that fuels you and feeds you is giving back and helping young entrepreneurs and helping other people do that.
I love doing that. My biggest thing right now that I've been doing for people is I want to set up investment accounts for them, because gaining wealth gives you freedom. And I even have a book coming out whenever I get it done. I had a ghostwriter write the whole thing. I don't act like I don't have much to do. I got to prove some stuff. But I'm going to do that today. It's one of my things. But my book, it's aimed at basically 14, 15, 16-year-olds all the way up to like 30-year-olds, right? Because it's like, guys, the most important thing with investing is time. Let's get you investing into the stock market early, because by the time you're 30, you could have $1 million net worth. And then there's a lot of stuff you can do with that, right? You can loan against it. You can, where do you want to get some money to go start a business? Go earn it. build it, and then go. Because like me right now, I never take institutional money anymore. Well, I do. That's all I take is institutional money for my own investing, because I have a stock portfolio that's robust enough that I can loan against it, right? And I just have an open line of credit with my stock portfolio anytime that I want to go grab some stuff. But I had to start doing that. And it started when I was 21, home from my mission, throwing $100 here or $500 here or $1,000 here. Like, that is the most important way to grow wealth, is to start growing different asset classes and not just your own home.
What's the name of your book? Do you know yet?
Yeah, I wanted to call it Start Yesterday. And then my editors decided to call it something else, and I like that better. It's like a whole.
I actually like that. Start yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, what's that? Like, it's
yeah, it gives you a little bit of urgency, right?
Yeah.
Like, this book is an urgency thing, right? This isn't like another self-help book you're going to read and never actually do anything with, right? It is. And my whole point with the book too is it says, I'm going to take you just deep enough that you feel confident in investing without hiring somebody, right? But not so deep that we're getting into how bonds affects the market. And, you start to look at the global, it's like, it's just too much. And I think that's the financial industry in general, right? They have complicated investing tools so much that people think they can't do it without somebody. But you give away 1% of your portfolio every year to a manager. That is insane amount of money at the end of the day.
Yeah,
absolutely insane.
It adds up.
Like, every person I've set up a stock portfolio for, they go, "How can I pay you for this?" And I go, "Yes. When you make millions and millions of dollars in this thing while we're all in our 60s and 70s, you can take me on a luxury vacation that I don't want to pay for." They're like, "Great." I'm like, "Great." Then I also have no liability if this thing crashes into the ground.
So, Mark, what are you most excited about over the next, we're recording this here at the end of 2025. What's 2026 look like for you?
2026. I'm really excited spending time with my kids and really having life experiences with them. So next year I'm going to go to Italy, Japan, Germany potentially. We do like paddle trip every year, different things. I'm in the mode of, I'm still making good decisions in my companies, and I'm trying to do a roll up, which we were talking about earlier, for my main core companies. That could take 5 or 6 years. I don't really know. But like for next year, it is just soaking up as much time with my kids as I can. Cause like my daughter will turn 17 next year, right? And then she'll turn 18, and then she'll turn 19. And then just this clock that they're eventually going to be out of the house. And my whole world changes when my kids leave. And it's good. I don't want it to happen, but it's good, right? They got to progress and move. And so, the thing I'm really excited about over the next 10 years is I started a stock portfolio for all of my kids when they were born, right? And so they have a decent net worth, right? And I'm teaching them how to keep on growing that and growing that and growing that. My rule with them is if they have to put 50% of every dollar they make into this investment fund. From there, they can do whatever they want with it, which is a little bit of a loose budget, but I don't really care. I think I just want to bang into their head that investing is the most important thing. So by the time they're 25, I will give them this investment portfolio as long as they've done that and as long as they've earned it. And the reason why I'm doing that is I want this to be, I don't want them to like get this portfolio and then go buy a car or something stupid with it, right? It is to continually grow this asset, right? And as all three of my kids continue to grow these assets, then eventually I'll die, and then my money will turn back down into them. And it could actually be generational wealth if they want it to be, but it's up to them, But I'm not doing the thing when they turn 18 and I just hand them,
that ruins people. I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. They've got to earn it along the way. And so,
I mean, if I would have got I didn't know anything about money when I was 18, and I didn't, yeah. I remember I got a Circuit City credit card when I was 21 for like $6,000. And I think I maxed the thing out and paid the price for that for years later.
Your stereo system had been off the chain.
I got a cool stereo in my Honda Accord and but like
JL subwoofers or something. Yeah. I still want that. I still never bought that.
It's so funny. Well, Mark, I appreciate it, dude. I just love your energy. I love your integrity. And I just love, and really admire just you live a incredible, comfortable life. You've made a lot of money, but you've earned it. And I think that's the big thing is like and you're teaching your kids that. And I'm so grateful for my kids got to experience a lot of things when they were younger. You had a lot of money. And one of the things I was worried about was that they weren't they're going to take things for granted or different things, you know, because my dad doesn't like me saying this, but the greatest gift that my parents gave me is we had no money.
Yeah.
I got my first job when I was 10, and you know, I had to learn how to work at a very young age just so I could go to the movies or to go do stuff. And I was so great. I mean, I look back on them like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for that. And, you know, and luckily my kids have that and just the work ethic. And I just love how you're, again, helping the youth and do things, but you earned this and you made big sacrifices and did a lot of things early on in your life in order to provide the life you want today. And we all know people, you know, where, you know, you start making some money, you start spending it, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, you can know people that are making sometimes 50, 100, 200,000 a month and they're paycheck to paycheck because their lifestyle matches what they're doing.
Which isn't that crazy? I see that all the time. It's crazy. You got to invest.
And it's like, oh, it's always going to go. And then of course, yeah, you know, you're going to, something will happen and this will, you know, or it's like, oh, this is never going to end. And then, you know, you're a contractor and then an '08 hits or, you know, or like, boom, you're dead, you know, or whatever happens to be. So anyway, man, I really appreciate this. And, you know, we'll put in the show notes where people can follow you on social and just excited to see what's going to happen and just seeing you continue to do all you're doing.
And one message I just like to leave with people, it's kind of this thing that's been on my mind for years actually is, when I build stock portfolios with people, I ask them, what's the goal? Right. And it's a trick question. This is like 100 million, 10 million. They start naming some figure, right? And I go, no, the goal is to live a good life. And they go, oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, of course, right? And I'm like, no, that's the goal. Like, wake up every morning. Your goal is to live a good life. To do that, you have to prepare for the future and you have to live in the present, right? So you have to invest. You have to do things that are going to pay you down the road, right? If you're young and you want to get into a career that requires education, get an education, right? But that's part of living a good life. And as soon as you start veering off of living the good life and you focus too much on money, you focus too much on pleasure, you focus too much on your family, you lose track of that goal. And so I really want to encourage people, whenever you build a financial goal or a relationship goal or anything, remember the actual goal is to live a good life.
I love that. Great parting words. Thank you, brother. And thank you for everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time.